Paltrocast. I'm going to start with some small talk and say, how's your day going aside from, talking to untrustworthy media people?
Sure. Okay, whatever, man. Let's do it. Can you hear me though? You hear me fine?
Totally hear you, totally see you. And your name pops up in my inbox a lot because, Griselda, everyone's talking about that, lessons in chemistry, the separate press releases from that. So you basically have two soundtrack releases coming really back to back. But when were those finished with relation to one another? In other words, when did you rap on Griselda versus rapping on Lessons in Chemistry?
So, lessons in chemistry finished after Griselda, actually, and it was later last year. There was another project that we did um, as well. That's coming out. That's out now, called Monsieur Spade. That I was. So I got really lucky. It seems like I'm really busy now, but I was actually busy like a year ago. That's when it was like all these were kind of overlapping each other. And but yeah, no, I got really lucky to be that busy. And then, the strike happened and I played Zelda for a while.
On which console did you play Zelda?
Nintendo, yeah, Nintendo, the Switch. I played Tears of the Kingdom and beat it. I got all the battery packs, like the both rows, the green all the way through the to the blue. And then I mean, I've gotten almost all the armor sets now. Now I'm just barely playing because I'm busy again, so I'm happy. But but I did beat the game before I got busy again. So I really just went away into I played every Zelda game since 1987 or 86 when the first one was released.
Adventures of Link, I remember it very well as the second one. Have you
Yes.
composed any scores to video games?
No, man, I've never really kind of sought that out. I'd love to do it. Of course, I'd like to do any gig is welcome. There's people that are really picky. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'll do anything. Like that's fun. And video game music's always been like something, and it's a very different process because we teach it at the Frost School where I teach, and it's just a very different animal altogether. But I haven't been approached to do it, but I'd love to do it, of course. Any work, man. Let's go. You know.
So I regularly have the pleasure of interviewing composers, and there's three or four boxes that you can put them in when I talk about high profile composers
Mhm.
like yourself. And one of the boxes is they were in a band that was signed in their garage band people. Do you fit into that at all? Were you originally a garage band person?
Dude, I was 1985 to I was in a rock band since then with my brother in a garage in Kendall in Miami. And then we had the dream and we didn't get signed. Then we I was in another band and then we had the dream. We made a record but didn't get signed. And I moved to LA and anyways, to keep it short, I've been in bands for a long time. We did get signed. Then we got dropped. And so I have the behind the music. If you remember VH1,
Oh,
just for the old folks, but you know what
oh,
I'm talking about.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
Behind the Music was my favorite show for years. Now with goggles, with the rose colored glasses off, I realized it was the same exact story every single time,
Yes.
regardless of who the artist was. You go, okay,
Exactly. Exactly. The thing is, we didn't even get to be on VH1. We just had our horrible story, where we
which
got signed and
label were
dropped.
you signed to?
We were signed to a really cool small label called 333, but it was an imprint that was started by a director called Tom Shadyac, and
Oh,
he
Ace
had made,
Ventura, Tom Shadyac.
yes, sir, Pet
He had a
Detective.
record label.
He made so much money for Universal, like the company that they gave him a record label. They're like, "What do you want?" He goes, "I always wanted to start a record label," and he had a great heart, man. He really was a great guy and wanted to kind of see these bands be successful. He signed a band called Unified Theory that was
Yeah,
had the drummer of Pearl
Blind
Jam,
Melon.
Blind Melon. Dude, you know that this is so cool. So
Wait,
they were the
that's your
first.
band?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. They were the first band signed. We were the second band signed was a band called Killing Heidi from Australia
Yeah.
that were like, and then we were the third band signed called Zoo Story. We got signed and we made the record. Unified Theory made the record, released a video. And then he had it. Honestly, it was one of those weird political things where the distributor wasn't supporting him. So when we went to go to radio, we really had to work it. We drove all around, the country trying to get ads on radio, like the old school days. And We got just a few ads. He even supported us by putting a song of ours in his movie called Dragonfly that he directed, but the movie didn't have much traction. And then he ended up making Bruce Almighty, and he had a really big kind of comeback. But by that time, we were kind of fading away, and like, we got dropped, and not by them, but by the distributor. Like the whole thing, his whole imprint basically had to fold. So it was a real lesson in the dreams being broken. You know what I mean? Like, and like things end. And so I got my training, I guess, in the Hollywood Callus or whatever then, and I proceeded to get into classical music and teach. That's what I wanted to do anyway, and I started teaching, and then I got it. Anyways, this thing happened, like started like about 10 or 12 years ago, so I got really lucky that I'm getting to talk to you now.
Well, it sounds like a comparable path to Jeff Cardoni. Do you know Jeff?
Oh, dude, I don't know about his background. I've just met him and hung with him a few times, and he's like super, super cool, and obviously he's super talented. But
Yeah,
what band was he in?
he was a later member of Alien Crime Syndicate, who I don't remember if they were on MCA. The old nickname for MCA used to be the Musical Cemetery Association because they couldn't break rock bands. There's certain labels. Arista was terrible with rock. MCA was terrible with rock. Uh,
Yeah.
as a music industry nerd who dabbled in management, you kind of learn that, oh, you signed to them? I hope the advance was big because your record's not going to be a hit. But I didn't
Dude,
know that about you and Shadyac and all that. And
yeah,
Unify
by the
Tree.
way, it's just to say it was 333 was the name of the imprint, but it was Universal Records that was a distributor, right? It was through
Yeah.
Universal.
Or
So
was it
they were the label.
Fontana? Because Universal used to have that weird Fontana imprint, which was their weird, like, this is kind of
No.
indie.
No, dude, 333 was the sort of day-to-day label, and that they had those bands and they were responsible, and he built it. And but man, it was really hard because I never even see. I always thought, because I grew up in Central America, man. I had no idea I'd get to do this. I was positive that musicians were born in another island or another world, like they're alien. The first time I saw a commercial for a Fender guitar, I freaked out because I thought, you can buy that? Like, I'm not kidding. I really was that far away from it. So I always thought that when you made it, you were untouchable and things were perfect. But I got to see in Shadyac's experience going through the label, how hard things can be for him. He was
Yeah.
gracious to us, man. He was really top-notch dude, man. Really, really great in an industry that, as you sound like you've experienced, you know what I'm talking about.
For better or for worse, I do. And the other box that you go to after, you find out, okay, no, the person did not have band experience, is that they apprenticed under somebody like a Hans Zimmer or something
Yeah.
like that. And that was their gateway in that allegedly they wrote all the music that says Hans's name on there. In your case, was there an apprenticeship or what was your gateway to get that
No.
first film?
No, I was the only reason I'm getting to do this is because I had a guitar student called Scott Frank. And Scott Frank at the time was a writer, and he had done Minority Report, Little Man Tate, Dead Again, Out of Sight. And I freaked out when I got an email. I had put my ad up and when I was living in LA at Old Town Music, and he emailed me, and I walked into his office and I saw the posters, and I was like, oh man, what do you do? He goes, I write. I go, you wrote those? He's like, yeah. I was like, holy crap, and I started getting nervous, you know what I mean? Like, it was a Hollywood person, and the joke I say, but it's true. I got home and I told my wife, I was like, oh my God, dude, you won't believe I met this incredible writer for Hollywood, and he's done all these things, and he's done, like, Dead Again. She's like, dude, the dishes are on the right. So I was just like, we got dishes to do and a life to live, my friend. So,
Oh yeah.
but it was a great experience. I just never thought I'd get to work with him. And at the time, I was just teaching him guitar. He made his first movie. He was a writer, switched to directing, and made a movie with James Newton Howard as a composer. And then, for his second project he was working on, he said, we've been like 5 or 6 years working on this, and you've never asked me to hook you up. And I go, no, it's just, I'm in your world. I'm your guitar teacher. And I've never liked those people. They're like, hey man, somebody, I got a screenplay. Can you know what I mean? Like, I just don't like being that guy. And so he said, listen, I'm writing something. Maybe you can write some music and help me write it. You're not going to get the gig, but at least you get experience. I was like, dude, that'd be so cool. That's how we started. and it was for a movie that went away. And for him, then I moved to Miami, and then I found out he was working on a Liam Neeson movie,
Hmm.
and I emailed him, said, if this is true, because I'd read it on IMDb, and I was like, if this is true, there's no way I won't be involved, even if you get like a professional composer later. And he sent me the screenplay. I started writing music like I had been on the other thing, and he showed it to the producers, and I was cheap, so I got the gig. That was the way in. So not apprenticeship, but with him, and he was the only guy who hired me. He hired me in 2013. Then that movie came out. No one hired me. He hired me for Godless. That came out. I won like awards. No one hired me because I had like 2 credits on IMDb. And then he hired me for Queen's Gambit, and everybody kind of seemed to have seen it. And then I started
Yeah.
getting a lot of calls, and that changed everything. So he's my man. He's like everything to me. He really is. Changed my life. So.
Wow. So in terms of success, there's a lot of people like your Tommy Lees of the world who become famous when they're 19. And then you have your Rodney Dangerfields who make it finally when they're 55 or so, 50, 55. You're
Sure.
not you're not
I'm
Dangerfield
53.
level,
I'm 53 now, man.
but you made it in your 40s. But
I guess,
you
yeah.
you really had 20 something years of paying your dues.
Oh, bro, yeah. I mean, forever. And it wasn't like I was technically done. My goal really was academia and to become tenured, which I am. Like I wanted to follow that. Once the dream died with the band, it was clear to me that I had my fun. You're young once, that kind of thing. And so I just thought, I did get to do. We opened for the Who, man, at the Hollywood Bowl. No one would know that or remember. It was like we were managed by Doc McGee.
Wait,
And you
wait, wait.
probably
Okay.
yes,
Now
dude.
let's back up for a second here. The Who has always, since the 80s, had kind of unknownish opening acts. I remember that
Hello,
Willie
we're we're
Nile
we're
was
we're
doing
one of
it,
those.
Un-American. My
Hmm.
friend Dan Byrne, who's become a movie composer in his own right, he's done a lot of the Judd Apatow
I
movies.
know the name. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I met with him on some panel thing we did. Like a
He,
cool dude. Cool
he
dude.
did
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of the Dewey Cox songs and the Russell Brand, whose name I don't think you're allowed to say for another 2 months, but a lot of the Get Into the Greek stuff. And so opening for the Who, they've always been very cool with emerging artists. But in the case of Doc McGee, so you were managed around the same time as Vintage Trouble, I'm taking it?
Dude, I know the name totally. Yeah, they were one of the roster. I don't think we ever played any shows with them. Our music was different, but totally remember Vintage Trouble. Why, you
No
managed him?
Kiss opening gigs for you?
No, dude, we never, and no. And I remember the story like when he brought them back and put the makeup back on. But
Yeah.
we were managed by McGee like in '03. This is a great conversation, dude. This is like so I'm like nerding out now because I'm trying to remember also.
Well,
McGee
I
comes,
just to self promote for a second. I wrote a
please.
book about this guy, which just
Oh,
came.
wow.
So when you get into the insular world of David Lee Roth, you're somebody who reads liner notes, and somebody could
Yes.
go, yes, Steve Vai was his guitarist, but after that it was Joe Holmes, and after you get a little too nerdy. So when you hear that
Dude.
somebody has survived record deals, you want to know,
Yes.
you know
No,
who Doc
man.
McGee is.
Brother, we Doc McGee was our guy. Him and his brother were really
Scott,
like,
right?
right. He was the cool one, like the party or more. Doc McGee was the more reserved one, and he told us a story, and I have to share it because you'd care about this kind of crap,
Yeah.
and I never forgot it. We were sitting in some meeting, and he goes, my wife told me that, we were hanging out. I was hanging out with my wife, and she asked me, honey. No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember the thing. The story was I'm hanging out with my wife, and I told her, honey, if I lost all this money that I have and all my fortune, would you still love me? And she said, yeah, of course I'd still love you. I'd miss you, but I still love you. And I
That's such a
always,
David Lee Roth joke right there.
but it was Doc McGee's joke, man. It was like, and he told us what his wife said, and but it was for me fantasy time because I grew up as a teenager admiring all the bands he managed, and then suddenly we got to be managed by him, but we were already our story in a sense was that we were in our 30s, and so we were kind of too old to get signed. And the thing is, we were like 29, 30. When we got signed to Universal, we were I was 29, 30, and Singer was
Mhm.
31. And then it was like we did a 2-year stint with that. That kind of starts to fall. Then Doc comes in and tries to get us another record deal. That record deal doesn't happen, but he got us to play. He got us to open as by 2005 now. We're with Doc from 2003 to 2006 or something. We opened for Def Leppard and Bryan Adams on a national tour, like for the summer, opening at like minor league baseball stadiums. But
Yeah, yeah.
we were the opening act. So we were like, and we had to make money by saving money. We stayed in two motels total out of the 25 dates. The rest of it was like staying at friends' apartment, people that we'd meet. Can we crash in your place? You know, like literally, it was like that kind of experience. Our day-to-day manager for the tour was Snake, Dave the Snake
Snake
Sabo from
Stabo.
Skid Row. Yes, dude,
So
and
does
he's a
that mean
great
you're
guy.
also a diehard professional wrestling fan, or just leave that to Snake?
I'll leave that to Snake, and I'll leave the funny jokes to him, man. He would make me cry on the
Funny guy,
daily.
yeah.
He truly was like a naturally funny human being and good-hearted too. He was like another one with a good heart and was looking out for us. I just didn't know better, man. There was so many things that I was dealing with trying to figure out my place in the world and having gone through the band experience and the heartbreak of getting signed, dropped, and almost signed and touring. And we at 35, things will break now. And then, then my wife got pregnant. And I realized that it was time to make my own decisions because I was the guitarist in the band. I wasn't the decision maker. I wasn't the lead singer. I wasn't. So it was time for me to kind of grow up, and that immediately just shifted everything. And I went straight to I said I'm only gonna make money making music because by that time, dude, I was building websites, driving gear for bands. I was just doing any gig that came. And then it was like, okay, I finished my master's degree that I hadn't finished because I had gotten signed. Then I got my doctoral degree and continued academia. And then this world came in as I was already here in Miami, at the
Yeah.
University of Miami. Just so grateful, dude. It's just like this shouldn't have happened, kind of thing. This is how I see it. So I take it because of that, not for any other reason, because I had the heartbreak. So I know how bad it can feel, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So sometimes when I talk to composers, they treat the composing like a 9 to 5. They're writing every single day, whether or not they have a project, and that's that. And then there's other people that go, I need a project, I need a deadline. Otherwise, I'm not a creative person. Which one do you fall into?
Dude, option B only. Like I can't. Dude, I've been playing video games. If I'm not working, I'm playing video games or I'm just watching movies and it's like I went to school because I needed there are people like, "Well, you don't need to go to school to learn this." No, but some people need to go to school because without the deadlines and self-imposed or imposed by the situation they're in, they can't deliver. I couldn't. I could not. I need something, and I've just gotten good at deadlines. Like that's like the craft you build, like how to write to a deadline and know how to manage your time leading to it. So that's where my skill sets develop. But dude, no, I would if I didn't have it. I didn't, and I didn't even have like, oh, I finally get to have my creative outlet. Creative outlet is the work, man. You're getting to collaborate with amazing people, and it's a dream, dude. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Then to use another stereotypical composer thing on you, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of composers that I've spoken with who have great credits, and again, I'm saying you have great credits,
Mm-hmm.
they hit this one point where they go, you know what? I should still be doing my rock stuff and I should still be writing hits for other people. And they resume this whole paying their dues thing while they have that career. They're doing that on the side. When you have an idea for a
Mm-hmm.
rock thing, where does it go?
It goes nowhere. Like what it is like I, you know what the weirdest thing? You remember being young,
No.
younger. No, I have to say it that way because it's true. I
Yeah.
remember being at a party, and I remember some dudes at a party had gone and jammed, and they were like in their 30s, and I was like a 22-year-old, and they were in their 30s. And they were jamming "I Am the Walrus" or playing Beatles, and I was like, look at all those people, the old people. I remember feeling like, look at all those old folks. I'm in my 50s. If I were to do any kind of rocking, I know how depressingly, what is it, geriatric that would look. And so it's not even about look, because honestly, the truth is, like, I was in a band with my brother, and I live in Miami. My brother played bass, and we've talked about jamming. I haven't been able to do it. I haven't followed through for multiple reasons. Sometimes I'm just busy, or sometimes we just don't follow through on doing it. But I would love to jam with them, and our drummer who is in the band, who lives here, and just play. But it's almost for a nostalgic sense, not because I'm trying to create something or have something for the world to hear. I almost stopped thinking that way, I guess, because I got so beat up, through the, like, I got
Yeah.
things that I started looking at. Well, if I'm going to do anything, I just want to do it really well. And my obsession is getting good at what I do,
Hmm.
not, you know what I mean? And when I'm asked to do it, I'll just do the best and keep improving. But I have met people, like, on panels and stuff. They're like, what do you do when you're not writing for film? They're like, well, I'm writing a concerto, or I have to practice piano. I wake up at 5 in the morning, and finally on days off, I play for 7 hours. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I got like both battery lines in Tears of the Kingdom. That's a huge accomplishment, man. That takes a lot of zonite mining in the depths. Like, for me, that's kind of like what's the next video game I can get into? Can I go into another world? And so I'm not thinking it's a creative way. I'm thinking of you know, video games. I mean, it's been part of my life since, dude, I got the Atari 2600 in Costa Rica, and
Hmm.
we had Space Invaders and Missile Command.
Oh yeah.
And I remember just going, I'll never get bored of this. And it was the joystick with the red button, and
Oh
Night
yeah.
Driver too with this. And I remember, I'll never ever get bored of this game. And at some point, I remember feeling, oh crap, I'm getting bored of this. No, and I would look at the cover, because the software came in a cool box with art,
Yes.
and there was something about that whole experience that was like beautiful, and that stayed through when I got my first ColecoVision and started playing, and then my first Nintendo system that had
So you
Zelda.
skipped Commodore 64, or is that not
And
a Costa Rica thing?
I did no, and then that was Panama, and then back to Costa Rica, and then Miami. But I skipped in television. I never had it in television. I had a friend of mine who had it, and I'd go, you put these cards in where the dial pads were, and they had baseball for first, second, third
Yes.
base, or whatever. And that's, but like, my brother started playing Quake,
Yeah.
or Doom, and then it became Quake, and I would sit there and for hours watching him play, like, just a fan of video games. So yeah.
Well, in terms of video game music, that's been an interesting evolution because I remember, was it Quake or Doom 2 that Trent Reznor did some of the music for that?
Quake. It was for Quake.
And nobody talks about that when you talk about the Trent Reznor discography. And I remember there was a Genesis game that Green Jelly did the music for.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know
But
that.
those are, the kind of thing where maybe two instruments couldn't play at the same time through the sound card. It's very
I think there was a
basic.
lot of that. And I remember his soundtrack being very much ambient, like, kind of like he just did for The Killer. I don't know if you saw that movie. That movie should have been nominated for several things. The sound alone, if you haven't seen the film, um, it's like really good, and its sound design is so freaking pristine. That's the stuff I'm also nerd out on, is like good sound in movies. Like,
Hmm?
more than score, sometimes I'm like paying attention to how they're moving, place, because cameras placed somewhere, and how do you do with sound and
The
experience.
7.1, the
Yeah,
5.1, the
but
Dolby. Yep.
yeah, and I'm not even, I don't have Atmos. I have like a 5.1 at home, and that's just fine for me. And my studio is set up for 5.1, but I write it stereo mostly. And but it's sort of like the experience of sound, and the choice of sound is something that I relish in film. And anyways, The Killer is a great film. It's a David Fincher film, and I
Sure.
guess that's the reason why I brought it up, is because Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a score that's like Quake. It's like you're listening. Is there music? It's almost like very synthy and weird, but it's perfect for the film. It marries sound together. So it's where we get into the nerdy conversation of there has to be a good melody. No, dude, it just has to fit the picture, and it has to fit the story. So anyway,
Well, two quick questions and then I'll let you roam free. and
Yeah.
you know, be less upset that I made you talk about the McGee days and all that. The
No,
first question,
dude, super. This is the best conversation I've had in a long time because it's so weird and it's kind of like the juice that's actually motivating all of us as opposed to, you know, the thing you did or recently and we know the reason we do this, you know, but I'm just, man, I'm grateful to talk to you about this. This is like cool,
well,
you know?
likewise, and that first question is, you find that people who are guitarists, they first, pick up because they want to play their favorite songs. Then they have that I'm playing too many notes phase, whether it's Van Halen or Ingve or that, 80s metal kind of thing. And then they get more concise. Or so I assume. Did you have your Van Halen obsession, I play too many notes phase of guitar?
Okay, bro, this is like annoying. This is like the coolest thing ever. I went to the Hollywood Sportatorium growing up in Miami after we left Central America. We were here and 15, 16 years old, started going to all the concerts. And I saw all of the 80s bands live. Like I saw Rat live.
Rat is one of my top five band of all time, by the way. Please
Okay,
don't.
Lay It Down, the guitar riff for Lay It Down is one of my favorite riffs of all time.
Oh yeah.
I wrote my own solo over that riff at the end because I did this thing. I can't do it. I don't have the guitar with me, like that I could even show badly. I mean, I could show it, but I'm like,
Can
is
you
this
do
a
the Juan
video?
Croucier dance moves while you play it?
Dude, tell me. But the point is like I was like so
Yeah.
into that band and but I went to see David Lee Roth when he after Van Halen I saw with Steve Vai. We snuck into the backstage and we jumped over this thing and we stood there. A friend of mine, George and I, stood there looking at Steve Vai. We were frozen because he was standing there talking to some people, meet and greet, who people had legally gotten there. But and I was just standing there going, and we were just, anyways, too many notes. We saw Michelangelo do a clinic in Miami, and he
Four
played,
neck guitar. Yeah.
yes, and so he was doing that, and the arpeggio, and all these incredible speed guitar playing. So too many notes was my era, and it took grunge to kind of help me. And I was in a rock band that where I was writing all the songs with my brother, and all my solos were like, here comes the solo, displays of awesomeness. And I can say that because I was pretty freaking good. It's just I suck now, so I can show off. Back then, I was a really good electric guitar player, but now, the joke is the older I get, the better I used to be. And and the thing is, like, I was like, ah, and then I joined another band, and that was in the 90s, and I started playing a solo over one of the things, and the singer Matt was like, what are you doing? And I go, bro, hold on, dude. And he's like, dude, just no. So what do you just, and that idea of like, what's a melody? What is in the way of the melody was kind of born there. And like Nirvana, the solo for Smells Like Teen Spirit, really, that guy unemployed most of the 80s bands and single-handedly, and with that song. And what is it that we're trying to do? What are we trying to say? Not all of that stuff really started to affect me. So, and honestly, I started to pay attention to Eddie Van Halen's playing as a great blues player who happened to have this additional talent, who such a unique, one of my favorites is So This Is Love, his guitar solo for that. It's a great solo and it's fast, but it's choice. It has silence. It builds. It's just this weird moment, and it's not like the 80s, yeah, kind of playing. And another guitar player that I thought was notey but beautiful was Neil Schon, or Sean. I never
Noti,
know.
but I've never heard Noti before.
But yeah, if you
Yeah.
listen to those solos, man, they're great, beautiful
Yeah.
compositions on their own. Tom Schultz as well for Boston. Those solos are like amazing, and like some, Be Good to Yourself by Journey, which is on another record, something radio, Spirit of the Radio. I forget, something like that
Raised
is the
on
name.
Radio,
Razor on Radio. Thank you. That
which
song is
Randy
a single.
Jackson played bass on.
Oh my God, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
I
By
think
that time,
that's
they were
that's
all falling apart. Yeah.
hilarious that the American Idol guy
Little Pitchy
was
Dog. Yeah. Little Pitchy Dog. Not your
Itchy
bass on
Dog
that song.
was in Journey.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. That guitar solo had
Yeah.
those melodies, man, and where they go and how they built. Oh, bro, come on, man.
And it has
That
nothing to
that
do with
that
the
solo is
vocal
great.
melody, so it's a totally original thought. It's like a song unto
That's
itself.
what he was great at. And
Yeah,
Neil was a great guitar player. He survived the 80s. He had his own record. He put out his own record, and it's called Night Moves or something like that. And the rain's coming down. I wanna make love. Like he had this whole like, not a great singer, bro. Let's just get that out of the way. But when the solos came, look out. Anyway,
yeah. I mean, sidebar here before I ask the
yeah,
last thing, but every guitar god pretty much was not a great singer, or they didn't have the mic in front of them, or
yeah.
if they did, it was a prop mic. So it's like you love Ace Frehley, okay, keep the mic away from that guy. You love Don Felder, keep the mic away from that guy. Eddie, do you ever hear the song that Eddie sang on Van Halen 3?
No. Wait, what song? Is he credit? He sings
It's
the
something
lead?
like "How Many Say I."
Oh, dude, I haven't even heard that in a while. No, no, no. And I thought I knew. Like Diver Down, I know pretty well. And but I was guitar. That's the other thing. Lyrically, I didn't pay attention to lyrics until I was in my late 20s in songs. I was always about the singing and the melody, but not the lyrics and the importance of what you have to say lyrically in a song too, and how it can affect things. But no, I don't. Jimmy Page, obviously, not
Yeah, never has a
necessarily.
mic in front of him.
Do not. Brian May though did, but backing vocally, but they were just such a unique entity, Queen.
Yeah, but then again, you have Justin Hawkins from The Darkness who's doing the leads and the singing. So there are your isolated talents. But back to you before I let you go. So you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that Griselda, Lesson in Chemistry, all that was done a year-ish ago, and then you
No, 6 months, 6 months. We finished by like June,
okay, a
May and
while
June.
ago, and then you dug into Zelda. So are
Yeah.
we? I'm not asking for the exclusive or anything like that, but are you writing right now and there's more projects to come and keep checking the Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, man, yeah. And one thing is, I was talking to somebody else about this. We're definitely working on. I've been working on Hacks season 3 with uh,
Oh,
David Stahl is my co-composer, who's done additional music for me, but now he's a co-composer, and eventually he'll be his own composer, and he won't take my calls. That's the hope. But he's working with me on Hacks and season 3, and I'm working on another project. But that I don't say it, not because I can't say it, or like I just don't like talking about crap until it's done, because a lot of times you're oh, I'm working on this, and you hang up, and then next week they fire you. So things happen, and this is normal. It's not like an abnormality. And so I just don't, not just for the maybe superstition or whatever, just to avoid the chance of being like, hey, what happened to blah? Nothing happened, at all. So, it's like I'm working with Scott on something else right now, and I'm super excited about that. And um, yeah, man, I've been blessed, dude. It's like really, really a blessing. And yeah, it's a long journey of a lot of heartbreak, but that's how it is. I think it's not unusual. I haven't met somebody who hasn't been through a hard time. Very few people are famous or big or good at this at 20,
well,
very
the
few.
unusual part, to interrupt you very rudely here, is that you
Sure.
didn't quit after the first record deal ended and the second record deal didn't happen. You didn't quit. That's the
That's my
unique.
wife's fault. That's my wife's fault, bro. Because what happened at some point, I was things were so bad on the second record deal that didn't happen. Basically, she was like getting her degree and studying and working and doing an internship. She was like doing all this stuff, so she'd leave like early at 8 in the morning. I was in my robe and I was playing. I think it was Majora's Mask, and she got back home like at 6 or 7, and I hadn't moved from the couch, and it was like a month of that. And she said, "Dude, we have to have a chat. We got to talk." And she was like, I don't know what's going on, but you don't look good. And I go, well, the problem is I'm seeing the boat, sink, and I don't even care. I remember saying that, and so she's like, listen, man, you're gonna have to figure something out. And she really helped me kind of get back on it, because yeah, I mean, dude, it's real. It's not like when you're experiencing that kind of loss, and when you're realizing the dream is over, it's it's really painful. And then, so how do you adjust and how do you pivot? And so, and I'm still married. She's still married to me, actually, is a better way to put it. And it's a miracle. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it is hard, bro. I mean, I don't think it's for the faint-hearted, to follow your passion, you know.
Oh,
But if you have support, if you find support, especially if even if you're anybody's listening to this and they're alone, if you find support, find your people, because I got very lucky to have her, no doubt.
find your people. And the bottom line is, Carlos, inspiring path, great work. Looking forward to what's to come. And just thank you for your time and being this unique being within the music realm.
I think it's very. I think a lot of us are. There's a lot of similar stories, bro. I'm sure you've met them. So, but thank you so much, man. This is really nice to get to talk to you, and to be continued.
Paltrocast.